Alright, so imagine this, you're just cruising through the city, minding your own business, when suddenly the road you've taken a dozen times before is gone. There's a construction site where your shortcut used to be, traffic's a mess, and the only way forward, you gotta jump your taxi off a building. Welcome to Taxi Chaos 2. This game is absolute madness in pretty much every way. Now, if you remember the first Taxi Chaos, you probably remember the fact that it was in fact shit, and was developed by Team 6 Studios, so nothing surprising about that whatsoever. Well, I've been hands-on with the Taxi Chaos 2 demo, and it feels like it could be the beginning of a redemption arc. Emphasis on the could. The city is more alive, the mechanics are more creative, and there are little touches that make the chaos feel a bit more intentional this time. But it's not quite there yet. So in this video we're going to break it all down, the new gameplay systems, the good, the bad, and whether or not this game is going to be worth your time. So let's hit the gas on the Taxi Chaos 2 demo. Now, the first thing that got me just even a little bit excited about this game's existence was the fact that supposedly it was developed by a different company under the name of Focus Point Studios. However, that is just a total facade because upon googling, it turns out that Team 6 just had a rebrand and is now Focus Point Studios. So it's quite literally the same developer under a different name. So we do need to bear that in mind with Team 6's track record of mixed to absolutely terrible games. However, I was willing to give it a chance because I love Crazy Taxi, I love games that attempt to do Crazy Taxi and do it well, like Simpsons Road Rage, but the first Taxi Chaos was obviously not good, so let's see what happens. So let's jump into it. One of my favourite parts about the demo was the dynamic world. More often than not, when I took the same route, something changed. One moment you're cruising down a familiar street, and suddenly a construction site pops up, blocking your path, with some convoluted platforming way to get through. Another time a landslide might cover half the road, forcing you to improvise. These little environmental shifts kept the gameplay from getting stale. It's a clever way to inject replayability and challenge into what would otherwise be a pretty straightforward driving loop. You're not just memorizing the best route anymore, you have to adapt. Improvise, adapt, overcome. And the best part, when you find that perfect shortcut, maybe by jumping over a blocked street or weaving through a tight alley, it's genuinely quite satisfying. It rewards curiosity and quick thinking, things which I'm not very well known for. When you boot up the Taxi Chaos 2 demo, the first thing that does stand out is how alive the city feels. There's traffic, pedestrians, construction sites, and environmental changes that I previously mentioned. Unlike the first game, which often felt like you were driving through a static toy city full of assets, Taxi Chaos 2 gives the impression that things are actually happening with evolving roads, changing routes, and obstacles. I mean, sure, you're still picking up passengers and rushing to their destinations, so that core arcade taxi loop is still intact, but now it's just a bit more dynamic and somewhat unpredictable, and that's what makes the game a bit more engaging. Now, if you were unfortunate enough to have played the first Taxi Chaos, you might remember the jump mechanic. It was fun in concept, but honestly it felt underused. Well, actually it just felt completely useless. Well, not anymore. In Taxi Chaos 2, the jump mechanic has been completely reworked and integrated into the level design. It's no longer just a gimmick, it's something you actually need to do. You can use it to vault over traffic, discover hidden paths, or even chain it together with the new turbo ability you unlock later in the game. When you combine both, it opens the map up in a really cool way. And at times, it almost feels like a platformer in a taxi. That might sound weird, but trust me, when you're mid-air jumping from rooftop to rooftop, or jumping up to a ramp to shave off seconds from your timer, it does feel very satisfying. Now, not everything in the demo hits the mark. One of the new additions is combat, and while I liked the idea, the execution definitely needs some balancing. Enemies feel way too aggressive. They can swarm you, and unless you're using shortcuts or jumps to escape, it gets very overwhelming very quickly. And even then, even when you take a shortcut, sometimes they still just follow you anyway, so it begs the question, what's the point? It's satisfying to outsmart them, but more often than not, I found myself wanting to just run away and not even bother fighting. There are different power-ups that help, such as a boost that I previously mentioned and a shockwave that sends them flying, but more often than not it doesn't really do that much to assist you. If the devs decide to tone down the aggression a bit or make combat more strategic, it could really add to the fun without breaking the flow of gameplay, but at the moment it just sticks out like a sore thumb. On top of this, as per most Team 6 games go, the handling is a bit hit and miss. Sometimes it works really well, other times it feels like you're driving on ice. I'm not quite sure why this happens so often with their games, it's really not that difficult to get right, but there we go. There are a few different cars to choose from, and some of them do handle better than others, but you shouldn't be limited to which cars you can choose that actually drive. They should all be able to handle well and do different things, not just one that handles well enough that you can turn corners and others that just drive into the side of them. So after spending a couple of hours with the Taxi Chaos 2 demo, here's where I'm at. The sequel has the potential to be more than just a rubbish crazy taxi clone. Yes, it borrows the same DNA, fast-paced fares, exaggerated physics, time pressure, but it has enough of its own flair to stand apart. The evolving city, the expanded jump and turbo mechanics, and the focus on discovery and adaptation push it forward. But there are rough edges, enemy balancing issues, some unclear missions, and some terrible handling. But that's what demos are for. The foundation is solid, and I'm curious to see where the devs take it. But I'm not going to hold my breath knowing the history of this team. One thing that does have me a little curious for when the full release comes is the addition of a story mode, because the general premise of this game is that AI taxi bots have taken over and you're the last cab driver left. So that could make for an interesting story, if it's done well. So we'll see. So yeah, colour me surprised, Taxi Chaos 2 might actually end up being at least okay. If you're on the fence because the first game didn't quite land at all, I think this one is worth keeping an eye on, cautiously. It's dynamic, it's unpredictable, and it is actually quite fun. I'll be checking out the full release when it drops, and if it delivers on what this demo shows glimpses of, we could be looking at a good taxi arcade style driving game from a company that is notoriously bad at making games. It could make history, guys. So let me know in the comments down below, have you tried Taxi Chaos 2 yet? Are you going to try the demo? And if so, are you going to pick up the game on release? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap the bell to stay up to date with my future uploads. A massive thanks to my Patreon subscribers for the continued support, and all that's left to say is I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.